שיר למחלות, אסעין על חגרים, מאין יבוא עזרי. עזרי מעם אדוני, עוז השמים והארץ. אל ייתן למות רגלך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן, שומר ישראל. אדוני שומרך, אדוני צלך, עליית ימינך, יומם כשמש לא יכך, וירח בלילה. אדוני שמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. אדוני שמור צדקך ובך, מעתה ועד העולם.
כל אומר קרא ואמר מה אקרא, כל הבשר חציר, וכל חסתו כציץ השדה, יבש חציר נבל ציץ כי רוח אדוני נשבה בו. אכן חציר העם, יבש חציר נבל ציץ, ודבר Eloheinu יקום לעולם. A voice says, cry out, but I ask, what shall I cry? All flesh is like grass, all of its beauty is like the flower of the field. The grass withers, and the flower fades when a wind from God blows upon it. Surely, therefore, people are like grass. The grass withers, and the flower fades, but the word of God endures forever. LeDavid Mizmor, L'Adonai haaretz umloa, tevel v'yoshveva, ki hu al yamim yesada, ve'al nahor tichoneneha. Mi ya'aleh bahar Adonai, umi yakum bimkom kadsho, Neki chapayim uvar levav asher lo nasa lashav nafshi, velo nishba lamirma. The earth is the Lord's, with all of its fullness. The world is the Lord's, with all of its inhabitants. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in the holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart. He will receive a blessing from the Lord and a just reward from the God of deliverance. Paula and Jeannie and Sherry, Jeff, family and friends. When Leo was sponsored to come to America, he was sponsored by the Jewish community of Council Bluffs, Iowa, where he spent 2 years. Teasingly, he forever referred to Council Bluffs as home. When he got there, though he couldn't read English, he knew nothing about the job. He knew very little about America. He didn't know very much about the expectations at the employment where he was supposed to work. But he succeeded because he learned on the job. And that was the story of his life. He always learned on the job. He always learned in the moment, whether it was Buchenwald or Theresienstadt or Council Bluffs, Iowa. No preparation, no training for those jobs. But he survived. You know, maybe he did have the right training. He knew how to survive. Leo always learned on the job. He learned life on the job. You know how a game arrives in the mail, and some kids want to read the instructions first, and a lot of kids just don't want to do the instructions. They just want to start playing the game. I'll learn as I go along. Life did not always allow Leo the time to read the instructions, but he learned as he went along. Life didn't give him the opportunity. Life placed him in situations that no one could adequately prepare for. You know, we recite our academic resumes. You know, we train 6 years to be prepared for this job, or we go to school for 4 years to be ready for the next job. You get an internship, so you're prepared for the next step. Life is always about training and preparing. But there was no school and no job to teach the skills that Leo instinctively needed. And they became his greatest skills. He was skilled at exactly what he needed to be skilled at because he was an original. He didn't follow the crowd. He didn't do things the conventional way. He always looked for alternatives. He looked for other ways. He was uncomfortable with sentences like, these are the rules. This is the way you have to do it. That's the way everybody does it. That's the way it has to be done. He survived because he thought out of the box. He survived by being street smart and by figuring it out. And the game he was playing, remember the game of life? We used to buy it years ago. That's what he was playing. He was playing the game of life, when you have to make choices that affect the rest of your life. And he started 100 steps behind with 100 disadvantages when he started that game after the Nazis came, but he won big anyway. He was one of 7. It was a difficult, struggling upbringing. His father owned a shop. Besides Leo, one sister survived and a brother survived and no one else. At 14, you and I are most worried about the science project or which summer camp to go to. When Leo was 14, the Nazis invaded Poland, and all science projects were canceled for the season. Jews were removed from schools and forced to work for the Nazi war machine. He was sent to one work camp, and then another work camp, and then to concentration camps, surviving only because he was young and healthy and kept working, and he was lucky. As those around him fell for spilling soup, shot for spilling soup or for showing weakness, for those who were being worked to death, Leo survived. I guess you could say he used a Yiddish cup. He did what he needed to do to survive. There was no manual book called How to Survive that existed. He was actually writing that book. He never realized it. After liberation, after the war, he met you, Paul, at a DP camp. And then you went your own ways, but you found a way to be in touch. After the war, Paula, you and Leo married, and ever since he has wanted you nearby. Your kids would say that if you were out, he'd want to know when you were coming back. He just felt better knowing you were in the house and nearby. After the war, Leo began a lifelong love affair with Paula and with 2 other things he never saw enough of during the war. 2 other things perhaps he thought he'd never see again. For the rest of his life, he loved children and he loved food. He loved children, especially younger children. He related to them. He wanted to be with them. It seemed just seeing them made him very happy. He always found a way to make his grandchildren laugh. He did silly things. They loved it. His kids hated it, but the grandchildren loved it. Grandchildren loved him. He told them fascinating stories, which they listened to so intently. Some of those stories were even true, or at least 25% of each of the stories was true. But it wasn't just young children. He spent then hours and hours talking at local schools and museums, discussing his life with older children, discussing his life experience, discussing being a survivor. He engaged the kids. He connected with them. He got them to think, and hopefully he got them to change their thinking about life. They could relate to him. His humor was always there. He brought the topic to them in a way that they could relate to. Being Jewish was always very important to him. He didn't think of himself as religious, but he was at his most devoted during religious times, during the High Holy Days, during Jewish holidays, Passover. He was passionate about Israel. He always liked to dress more formally and nicer for the holidays and at the Seder and for religious moments. He was very strong on family tradition. He showed respect and reverence for the tradition, and he never forgot who he was as a Jew. And I think he saw his role in life was to remember, but also to be a kind and a helpful and a giving and a selfless person who would give you the shirt off their back. I must tell you, as a non-religious man, he sounds more religious than half the people I know who think they're religious. I actually wish I had many more non-religious people like Leo. He loved to prepare food and to make sure enough food was available and that people would never skip a meal. Call it an after effect of the war or call it a personal pleasure that he was entitled to. He enjoyed seeing people enjoy his food, and he never changed. From, delivering Jeff sandwiches if he thought you were going to miss a meal during your training, to making sure the grandkids or the great-grandkids would know where to find something to eat, he'd come over and distribute it, or the grandkids, even more recently, would come over to him. Gave him a special satisfaction. But it wasn't just kids, and it wasn't just food, and it wasn't just humor, which Leo had plenty of, and it wasn't just being silly. It was all of these things and more. It was life itself. Life had granted him a chance for happiness, and he was going to use it. He was going to waste no time making life productive and meaningful and fun. And so he always had work to do. He pursued work as an electrical contractor. He wanted to do that. He was going to squeeze a little extra out of life. What was it you told me when he served food at the DP camp? People went to his food line because he'd always give them a little extra. And that's his metaphor. He always wanted to, once he survived, he wanted to give extra out of life. Every day he was going to give out extra. He worked days, he'd work late, he'd work in neighborhoods, no matter how safe. He'd work anywhere, and he would take pride in his work. And like everything else, he did it his way. He did it the Leo way. But it worked. Jeannie and Sherry, you would find ways to be with him even after a very busy day. You would find ways to spend time with him because you knew he'd never turn down a job. How could he? If somebody needed him, he wanted to respond. And he was still getting calls at the age of 85. For Leo, work was life, and work meant being with people, and he liked the interactiveness with people. When he was younger, he was a little quieter. After all, he would put in one full day after another. But at all ages in his life, he was always interested in you, interested in the other person's welfare, always before his own. As he grew older, he became more and more the entertainer, witty and joking. He knew how to connect with others. He always loved Cleveland and always a caring man. He served with Kol Israel. He was a wonderful fundraiser for Kol Israel. In the end, he was a great storyteller, but his own life is the one that's worth telling. Leo Silberman was a regular guy, and that's why it was so easy for him to relate to others. He was just a regular guy, and on the other hand, he was an extraordinary man. He lived through extraordinary times, and he responded, and he lived an extraordinary life. You never heard him complain, even at the end of his life. I can't complain, he would say, it could be worse. And you knew for a fact that he knew it could be worse. He was handy. He was called in to fix everything, major appliances. Beyond the fact that Jewish men normally don't fix anything, I think that Leo realized, as we all realize, that no one can fix everything. And there are some problems that demand far more than one person's efforts. On the other hand, one person's efforts can affect so many other lives, even if the whole problem can't be solved. His efforts to survive, his success in surviving, puts all of you right here in front of me. It enabled all of you to live. And Paula, your life with him, the life you shared, gave both of you hope after the war, gave both of you the reason to live. The childhood home is where the child learns about life. What was it, Jeff? You said that for a number of years you didn't realize your parents had an accent because it was the only way people talked. Everyone grows up, but first his childhood home is his reality. Paula, you and Leo created a world for your kids and for their kids and now for their kids. He absolutely loved that the younger generation was now carrying on, and he got a glimpse of it. He taught all of you to try to squeeze a little bit more out of life. Don't settle. Don't follow blindly. Find your way, even if it's a different way. Find your own path, and always, always give more. He lived with a good name, and he died with a good name. Corey. I think Corey's going to come up.
We always knew this day would come eventually, but none of us ever wanted to think about it because life without Grandpa is so hard to imagine. He's been there front and center for every significant event in our lives, and most of the insignificant ones as well. It's just so hard to believe that he's not here with us now, smiling, laughing, and cracking jokes. He has been so much more to us than just a grandfather. He has been a great-grandfather to our children, an electrician, a surgeon, incisions, although most of those were unlicensed, a personal shopper, a deli owner, a sandwich maker, a food delivery person, a dance partner, a comedian, a teacher, a role model, a hero, a survivor, and the best pal that anyone could ever ask for. Grandpa was always saying how proud he was of us, but really it was us who have always been so proud to have been able to call him ours. I could talk about all of his amazing qualities and everything that I will remember about him for days, but I don't have to explain to anyone here just how special he was. Everybody who knew him, and he knew a lot of people, knew it from the moment they met him. He's just one of those people that lit up a room, any room he entered, and instantly put a smile on people's faces. He loved to be the center of attention, but he was so deserving of that role, and you couldn't help but gravitate towards him and the coolness he exuded. When I asked my kids what they remember most about Papa Leo, they of course immediately said it was all the treats and desserts he gave them. They also remember how he joked around a lot and had very nice hair. What I'll continue to tell them is how much he adored all of his great-grandchildren. He loved to spend time with them, and he was so good at getting down at their level and playing with them, bumping heads, high-fiving, playing catch, or just giving big hugs. And he obviously loved to watch them eat. One of the hardest parts of all of this is knowing that our kids won't get to grow up with him the way that we did, but we will do whatever we can to keep his memory alive. As I've struggled to get through the last few days, I keep hearing his voice in my head. When I was too upset to have an appetite, I could hear him telling me to eat some food. When I was feeling so sad that I couldn't make it home in time to see him, I could hear him saying, "Don't worry about it." As I kept receiving condolences from friends, I heard his voice saying, "It's good to have friends." And as I heard people talking about what an amazing man he was, I know he was looking down and saying, "Thanks a million." He's had such a presence in our lives that all of his old sayings and jokes and mannerisms are ingrained in us. And because we were all so close with him and knew him so well, we know that he wouldn't want us to be sad right now, but to celebrate the incredible life he led. And he would want us to laugh, and goodness knows he gave us enough material to laugh for an eternity. Nothing was ever hard for Grandpa, or if it was, he never showed it. Whenever I asked him how he was, even up until the last week, he would say, "I can't complain, it could be worse." His positivity and zest for life will be something I always aspire to have. He was the life of the party, a honey of a person, the real jewel of our family. He was truly one of a kind. And while I know that my life will never be the same without him in it, I will carry him in my heart always in everything I do. Grandpa, we will pass on your legacy. We will be thankful for all the wonderful years we had with you. We will share our many memories of you with our children, and we will never, ever forget you, your bravery, your generosity, and the joy you brought to our lives. We will miss you and cherish you forever.
Please rise, everyone.
Eile malei rachamim, shachayna b'amramim, hametzai menachana, takat kanefei ashchina, b'mahalot kedoshim adharim, כזוהר גרקי המזהירים את נשמת לאו סילברמן שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תחי מנוחתו. אנא בא לרחמים אז תראיגו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים, ותצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו. אדוני ונחלתו, וינוח בשלום על משכבו, Avenamar. Amen.
May we remember all of the worthy and the righteous deeds that he performed while in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bonds of eternal life. May he rest in peace. And we all say amen.
Amen.
Let's be seated. We want to offer our condolences to Paula, to Jeannie, Sherry and Robert, Jeffrey and Judy, Corey and Andrew, Jeremy and Lauren, Trevor and Melissa, Jordan and Ang Lee, Courtney and Seth, Kelly and Brett, and great-grandchildren, Gavin, Scarlett, Miles, Alexis, Kendall and Evan, Liam, Blake, and Grant. The family will be moving now to continue the ritual for today at the burial spot at Zion Memorial Park. We're going to pause in the service to allow us time to arrange the processional. Please remain in your seats for a few more moments, but the pallbearer should now come forward.